All right, Sid, we're here. Rite of passage. I see on your hat there, and that's what we're going to talk
Yeah.
about today. So, how you doing, brother?
Good. How are you, man?
Very well, mate. Very well. And I see you got a few props in the background there. The helmets on the floor.
Yeah. The first person to notice them, I did intentionally place them there.
Well done.
Uh,
It looks
Yeah.
like on the floor, but it looks like actually on your bed.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and
It's a
you've got
guest.
your denim jacket hanging up in the back there. I'm sure you've got some very cool patches. Do you have Bitcoin themed patches on your jacket? I'm guessing. I mean,
So actually, I wore this at Bitcoin 2022.
well, the crotch is not a good look. Please don't tell me you've fallen off and like broken a leg or something.
Not actually mine, but it won't be long before I need one. Uh, this most of these have nothing to do with Bitcoin.
Hmm.
And actually, when I had it, there was nothing on here except for maybe one patch that had to do with Bitcoin. And at Bitcoin 2022, some reporter came to the Swan private party. She went to a bunch of parties, but I met her at the Swan private party. We talked for like 20, 30 minutes. And in her write-up about Bitcoin 2022, which was just smashing that it's all crypto bros and everyone's just milking each other for money and stuff. And no one's trying to do anything good. She wrote, "This guy with cryptocurrency patches all over his jacket was shilling me on Bitcoin." And I was like, actually, no, there's nothing about cryptocurrency on here. But yeah, I think I had Bay Area Bitcoin at that time. I got the Thai flag,
Yeah.
California.
You need
Uh,
some patches, brother.
that's Mount Gox. Love that pin. That might be,
No.
or this which might be from BTC Pins. I can't remember. He sent me some. The
Right.
Harley, they gave me this when I bought the bike.
Yeah, nice.
Owners group. Now I got rite of passage on there. Everyone who went on the ride got one of these. So these are limited edition patches. I'm going to make a new one for every ride. Live free, ride free. This is a car company and a defunct car company in Indianapolis. I just happened upon it. They made cars in the 30s that were crazy. Red Bull, Loud Pipes Save Lives. A lot of these I got on the ride.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's a
this
cool
the
one. Sound money patch.
yeah, the Sound Money patch from that was from Bitcoin 2022. I added that right after the conference.
Well, that's where we met. And yeah, that's a bad write up because if she'd have just stood around and hung out with the Bitcoiners, um, she'd have felt the energy, right? That was pretty
Yeah.
much well, we'd all been locked down for so long. I'd managed to procure certain medical certificates to make the trip out to come and visit everybody in America, and we were bringing with us the president of Madeira at the time, and Prince Philip of Serbia had just hit the scene.
Yeah, I remember it.
So we came over, and it was such a great time to hang out with you people and meet in real life people I'd been like hanging out with on Twitter and in the on the socials for God knows how long. Uh, and you were walking around with your what do you call it? That orange it wasn't a tank, it was like a salopette or
The
something.
saddlebag.
The
Yeah.
saddlebag, right.
Yeah, that bolts to the side of it's just a bag for holding stuff that bolts to the side of the motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I took that motorcycle every day to the conference center and parked it on the roof, which only found out afterwards that I wasn't allowed to do that, but the guards had no idea like what was going on. So I just told them I was part of the conference and okay, yeah, you can park on the roof. So I parked it on the roof and then I brought people to sign it. I think the first person I brought to sign it was Crypto Graffiti. I met him. I was looking at a piece of his artwork, explaining it to my friend. And then this guy next to me is correcting me. And I was like, oh, you know this art pretty well. And he's like, yeah, I am Crypto Graffiti.
Wow.
So that was and like I got this bike with these saddlebags. I painted the saddlebags orange, the rest of the bike was black. And then I brought this permanent pen to have people sign it. I probably have like 300 or 400 signatures on there now from people all over the country. But he was the first one to sign it. And I took him up to the roof. He walked all the way around and out. It's like a 20-minute walk to get to the bike. And he looked at it and goes, "Can you take these off of the bike?" I'm like, yeah, why do you ask? And he said, why don't you just carry it around instead of taking people up here one by one? You got to take 20 minutes to have every signature. So then I ended up being the guy carrying the saddlebag around, and that's how a lot of people got to know me before I did that tour. Because they saw like who else is walking around with a giant orange box through the conference center. But I got a lot of good signatures and met a lot of people because of that.
It was great, man. It was a brilliant idea from Crypto Graffiti and from you, right, to get it all signed up. Something that's just going to gain in value. The signatures that you would have got and accrued over that time. And then I remember you were going to go on like your great big US trip and whatever else. But we'll get into all of that and then talk about Thailand. But Lauren, she said to me, "Who are we going to have on the show?" So I said, "Well, Captain Sid." But that's not his real name. So
So yeah, so my first question is gonna be why do you call yourself, or why are you called Captain Sid?
Well, it goes back to the tour actually. So when I was doing that tour, my handle is still this, but my Twitter handle has been Captain Sid for a long time. I came up with that because my dad is an airline pilot, he's a captain, and Sid because I like the book Siddhartha and Eastern philosophies and whatnot. So I just put together Captain Sid. And originally my handle was my real name or had some resemblance to it. So I changed it to that when I first got into Bitcoin. And I used to work at Kraken, which is a super security conscious company. So they were like, if you give anyone your name, they're going to stab you and take all your Bitcoin. I mean, it's a bit hyperbole, but not really. They were very, very serious and still are very serious about the security of employees, because if employees get compromised, the company can get compromised, right? So through that experience, I was like, okay, I should go anonymous and be anonymous online and everything. So I changed it to Captain Sid. And then when I went on the tour, it was sort of an accident that people started calling me that because of the saddlebag. I was walking around with this saddlebag and people knew me as this handle Captain Sid on Twitter. So people started pointing me out, saying, oh, you're Sid, you're Sid, you're Sid. And then I started to realize people don't know that this isn't my name. They think that my name is Sid. And I kind of slept on it a few nights and figured, well, if I'm going to cross the country and shake thousands of hands of people I don't know and I've never met before in person, probably good if I have some pseudonym attached to it. So I just decided to go by Sid as I was traveling. So that whole summer, I just went by Sid. Everyone I talked to, I said my name was Sid. Then fast forward to now and after the trip, it's become more confusing because when I meet someone, I don't know whether it used to be if I went to a Bitcoin meetup, I'd call myself Sid. And outside of that, I'd just go by Evan, what everyone else knew me as. But it became more and more confusing as I'd meet someone, introduce myself as Evan, and then they go online and they're like, why is everyone calling you Sid? And your handle says Sid, you know. So I figured, you know what? I introduced myself as Evan. That's my default. I'm just gonna go with that and try to drop Sid, but I don't know. Texas Slim already told me you're Sid, you'll always be Sid. I'm never calling you Evan. So some people call me Sid, I'm sure.
And he would always be Slim. I have no idea what his freaking name is. No clue.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll always be Slim. So it becomes a brand of its own.
So
It's
Lauren,
interesting.
something for you to think about, because as you get further and deeper into your Bitcoin career, I suppose you're only 13 now. What are people going to know you as in 10 years time? Probably Lauren, because
That's what I was gonna say, probably Lauren.
the die has been cast. A lot of people already know you as Lauren and recognize you from the show and seen you in the conferences. But if you could choose a new name, what would it be?
That's a lot to think about, Eddie.
Yeah, well,
It's a big
sorry to lay
question.
that on you.
I didn't even choose it, and it just happened to me.
Yeah. I don't know, because you said like you did like a career of your dad and then your favorite book, so it would probably be like really bad.
Oh, right, yeah. What's your favorite book?
Well, I have a lot.
You're supposed to say mine. Like that was the biggest layer. Like
Yours.
there you go.
Through the ad slot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're watching on YouTube right now, a picture of Choose Life pops right up in the screen. You can get yours today. Right. Okay. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, so you do bike rides in Thailand, right?
Yeah.
Why did you choose Thailand?
So I moved here in late 2019 from New York City. I grew up all my life in the US, grew up outside Chicago, moved to Philly for 4 years for school, and lived in New York for 3. And at some point in New York, I started to get disillusioned with New York and with being in the US, and I just wanted to try something completely new. My dad, like I said, he's an airline pilot, so I grew up traveling a lot, getting to go to a lot of very exotic, weird places. First time out of the country, I was 8, and we went to China for 2 weeks. And that was like, as a Midwestern boy, totally broke my entire frame of how the world works. So I wanted to go abroad. I wanted to try something different. And I had been to Thailand in 2016, and it really stuck with me as a place very different from anywhere I'd ever traveled before and very livable. The culture is very nice. The people are amazing. It's super safe. So I thought, you know what, I could move out to Thailand. There's a good community of expats as well. There's a lot of expats who are looking for other offbeat people who have done the same thing, right? They're sick of their country or they wanted something new and they're traveling. So there's a lot of just interesting people doing offbeat things here. So I just showed up, tried it for 90 days, and fell in love with it. So I ended up staying here. And then over the last 4 or 5 years that I've been here, especially during COVID, because there was no interaction with the outside world, I couldn't leave. I was able to discover a lot of things about Thailand, about the culture, meet different people here that took me, it kind of all happened very randomly, but it developed me into the person I am today. It helped create things like the rite of passage. It helped give me the courage and the ideas and the support network to build everything that I've been working on. And reflecting on that last year, I realized I want to bring people out here and try to do that type of experience and do it in a way that I know, right? The things that changed me. So for me, motorcycles were a massive part of that. I never rode a motorcycle before I came to Thailand. I got on one here and I just learned in traffic. And now I mean, I rode a Harley across the US. I can ride any bike you put me on now, and I love it. And that adventure and thrill and risk of riding a motorcycle was really formative for me. So I thought it's got to be a motorcycle trip. It's the perfect vehicle for northern Thailand as well. So I wanted to do a motorcycle trip, and then I put events and activities and meetings together along the trip that I knew were things that no tour agency is taking you to. They're not touristy things, but they're incredibly interesting and thought-provoking things. So I lined all those up on the itinerary and then marketed it basically to all the Bitcoiners that I met on the tour and said, I want to run this as an experiment. It went super well last year. One guy stayed in Asia for 3 months after the tour because he loved it so much. So yeah, now I'm hoping to build this into a tour, experiences, retreats, do more and more of this kind of thing, kind of show people unexplored parts of the world. I've got a bunch of leads. I'm doing one in Japan now. I'm doing in Turkey. I'm doing one in the US this year. So it's sprung all these different ideas.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Good
say we
question.
should go, but I think I'm a bit too young to be on a bike.
Yeah, we don't ride motorcycles. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That kind of discounts us.
Yeah. Sometimes there are annoying people on motorcycles here in France. There's just a lot of idiots on them.
Oh my goodness.
The 14-year-olds on a motorbike
Yeah, it's
whizzing around.
far too dangerous at that age for sure. There's no way. I mean, of all the weird government rules that like they impose on you, like letting a 14-year-old loose on the roads on like an underpowered bike, it's just a recipe for disaster, and they can't figure out why, you know, so many teenagers die in motorcycle accidents every year. You're like, right? I mean, okay, I'm no
Hormones and
expert
engine.
in road traffic control, but
Yeah.
I just want to point out a pretty basic axiom right here that, you know, it's sad, very, very sad. Well, how many people did Caitlin know through her school and college that, you know, like every other month or something there was like some kind of accident? But anyway, we're here to talk about
Happy stuff.
happy stuff. And like Sid said, he didn't start learning until he was, you know, well into adulthood, where you've got much more control over your emotions, and you can weigh up risks a lot better at an older age. But well, thanks for your questions.
Yeah, thank you. All right, well,
Yeah,
we have
thank
to
you,
go back to
Paul.
Thailand anyways, so.
We do. We definitely do. Could you bring me back down a coffee, please?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, I want to. Yeah, cool. A lot of stuff to pick up on. COVID Thailand. What was going on? Because we have very close ties with Thailand, as I was explaining. My wife and I, we lived in Singapore for 15 years. All the kids were born there, and we bought a holiday home in Koh Samui 18 years ago, and it's still there. We still own it. We still use it for home swapping. We're home swapping it all the time wherever we go. We're off to Oslo on Thursday, right, for the Freedom Forum, and the way we're doing that, we're home swapping with a family. They've got a beautiful looking house just across from the Opera House in Oslo. It's like a 30-minute ferry ride. So we're not right on top of the event, but you know, we've got free accommodation. They went to our place in Samui about 2 months ago, and we're going to go and stay in their place. I think they're going to go stay with friends or family or something. So it's afforded us like a completely different way to travel. And when lockdown came around, we were thinking, oh, should we just bug out? Let's get across to Thailand. Let's go over there and just chill in Koh Samui. So we checked what was going on, and man, no chance. I mean, they were locked down hard on that island. I don't know what it was like on the mainland, but yeah, what was the feel, and whereabouts? What part of Thailand were you in when that was all going on?
So I was in Bangkok at the very beginning, and then in Chiang Mai, and then they shut down interprovincial travel. So one thing, I'm sure you understand this about Thailand, but for viewers, there's a big difference between the letter of the law, the rule, the mandate, and the reality on the ground. So islands were a little bit easier to control because it's an island. So if you didn't have ferries, you just weren't going to go, and that worked pretty well at holding people in one place. But everything else was pretty fluid. So it wasn't as bad as it looked from the outside. I was in Chiang Mai for most of it. In 2021, I rode my bike from Chiang Mai down to Koh Phangan and back over like 3-4 months, did a big motorcycle trip. And yeah, that was pretty open. The whole country was open except for the borders. Basically all of COVID, the first couple weeks, everything was shut down and no one really knew what was going on. So it wasn't as crazy as it seemed like it was in the US. And I'm sure these are isolated things, but I didn't see very much like food lines and rioting. Like there really wasn't much of that. It was pretty relaxed, especially in the north. And in the north, it's very rural. So you could go out and go hiking and ride the motorcycle. I did a lot of riding at that time, and no one would bother you. No one cared. You didn't have to wear a mask outside. There weren't, you know, the police policing and doing all the bullshit they were doing in places like Australia. None of that was happening. For most of COVID, it was just like if you go to the mall or you go to 7-Eleven, you had to put a mask on. And restaurants here and there were closed or couldn't serve alcohol, but they had all sorts of ways to go around that. Like bars were shut down for a while, but then bars would set up a small grill outside and start grilling skewers, and they say, well, we're a restaurant now, and then they would open up.
I love it.
So there's all sorts of shit like that happening, and a lot of like, you know, don't ask, don't tell, pay the police, and and no one really bothered you. So it wasn't too bad. I enjoyed being here for COVID. For Thais and for the Thai economy, it was bad because they closed the borders, and the borders were legitimately closed for like 2 years. So all the tourism businesses just got absolutely slaughtered, and a lot of them never came back. And there were a lot of places across Thailand that just shut down and never opened up again. Thankfully, it seemed like there's been some revival. There's a lot of new businesses, new investment in Thailand since opening up, but those 2 years were bad for the businesses, good for people like me who were inside but had income from outside. So I was able to stay at 5-star hotels for $20-$30 a night in Bangkok and go out and go to clubs in 2020, 2021. Well, people in the US had to wear masks outside and
Oh God,
couldn't meet with more than 3 people. Like there was none of that. It was
wow,
pretty chill most of the
that
time.
worked out for you. So how
Yeah,
what was that? What was that income coming in from outside then? Were you doing some kind of remote work?
Yeah, so that's what actually enabled me to move to Thailand. I got a job in late 2018 working for Kraken. I used to do marketing for Kraken for a crypto trading product.
Right.
And
Okay. So
a lot about
had you
Bitcoin.
already kind of fallen into the rabbit hole, or were you just applying for any marketing job that come across your radar? Like where were you
No, I
at
was
that?
definitely, yeah, I was definitely down the rabbit hole, but I wasn't completely convinced that shitcoins were shit yet. Well, by the time COVID came around, I was. It was kind of like 2019 that I put the nail in the coffin. So to give you the whole history, like 2016, 2017 started to get interested. 2017, my roommate called me out because I was talking about Bitcoin incessantly, but I didn't own any. And she was like, "Why
Ah, okay.
you keep talking about it, but you don't own it?"
So
So
you're at college at this point, yeah, and you're just kind of like,
I was 1 year out of school.
okay,
Yeah,
and
they were like 6 months out of school.
you were like following podcasts, articles, like because 2017, that like the deluge of Bitcoin only stuff hadn't really hit. It was
Yeah. And I was in New York City, which was like
right.
shitcoin at the time. We had
Yes.
consensus, all this stuff. So I was going to like, there was an ETH NYC event that I went to in 2019. There were lots of crypto trading meetups and lots of financial people and people in suits trying to figure out what their angle in this was. So there was a lot of bullshit. I went to a lot of meetups. I ran a newsletter about crypto meetups actually called like Crypto NYC or something. I don't remember. But I ran a newsletter that had like 1,000 subscribers of people in New York going to meetups. So I got really into the whole scene basically. And in that was late 2017, 2018. But then in 2018, I started working on fundraising for a small Bitcoin mining farm idea. Someone I met through a buddy in college wanted to set up like a 2 to 3 megawatt facility in upstate New York and mine Bitcoin. And I had to learn really technically how does proof of work and what are the economics of running a Bitcoin mining farm. So I really started to understand how does this thing work and what value does it provide? Why is it real? And that's when I started dropping everything else and realizing, okay, the reason that I go to ETH NYC and I can't find a single person that seems to not be smoking dope when they talk about their project, where is the real value in this space? And through that experience, I started to understand that it's really just Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only one that does anything different than an AWS database in any real way. And that money really is the only thing that this idea is good for. And actually, it was not until a few weeks ago that I really got the right word to describe this, which is trustlessness. I think that's a really good way to describe what Bitcoin does. It's trustless. It's a computing system that doesn't require trust to use. And so through that, I started dropping everything else. In 2019, I went to the first Bitcoin conference, the first Bitcoin magazine one, Bitcoin 2019. And that was when I realized, really, okay, these are the people I want to be around. This is the space that's interesting where they're talking about real substantive issues. They're not just bullshitting and talking about vaporware. They're talking about real things. And the financial system and money and all this. And prior to this, I had not really connected Bitcoin to money in the sense of like the monetary system. I'd always been interested in economics and all that, but I had never connected Bitcoin to there being anything wrong with the money. And it was at Bitcoin 2019 that I started to hear some of those arguments. I thought of Bitcoin as more like payments, which then opens up to a lot of other shitcoins. But then I realized there's nothing wrong with payments. Payments can be done instantly as long as you have a centralized server. The problem is not payments, it's money. That's the real problem that we have. And so through 2019, 2020, I went full bore down the rabbit hole and really got into Bitcoin after that. And that's when it was Bitcoin only.
And so Kraken, what was your role there?
So I did marketing for their, it's now unfortunately shut down, their CryptoWatch trading product. So it's sort of like Bloomberg for crypto. You could trade everything. It ingested data from a bunch of different exchanges. So I learned a lot about trading, met a lot of traders, and it gave me a lot of respect for the art of trading. It's a lot of discipline and risk management and stuff that it takes. But it also taught me that unless you're going to dedicate 24 hours a day to learning and practicing this craft, you should not trade, because it really is that difficult. People think, oh, you just buy this coin. That one went up 100, this one will too. Never works like that. You never sell at the right time until you lose over and over again and you practice these things. The people that I met who are really good, legitimate traders, they're like monks. Nothing affects them emotionally because they have to be that way in order to move around significant sums of money and make money trading. It's very, very difficult.
Wow, man. Inside a shitcoin casino, seeing it from the front lines. That's
Mhm.
and I mean, well, they're still huge, right? Kraken.
Yeah. They're still huge. I still respect like Jesse and the leadership of Kraken. I think their heart is in the right place, even though they don't understand that Bitcoin is the signal and the rest is noise. They're just like libertarian on a very far end of the spectrum where it's like just leave it all, let it all happen. Plus, I'm sure there's some of the, they make fees trading all these things. They would make a lot less money if they only focused on Bitcoin. So there's probably some of that as well. But it was a great place to work and very flexible and allowed me to move out here. But at some point, because I had gotten so Bitcoin only, as well as the company on the team that I was on started to get more and more corporate, which thankfully I think that guy left now, but that team we were hiring people from Facebook, Google, LinkedIn. And I was like, no, 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 no. This is becoming exactly what I wanted to leave. So I just thought it's time. I've stacked enough for now. I'm getting out. I'm going to figure out what's next. And I had no idea what's next. I had a kernel of the idea of doing the Bitcoin tour at the point that I left, but I had no plans.
So
So
just to tie this together, so I'm not mistaken the timing here. You were sat in Thailand working for Kraken remotely, doing the marketing.
yeah,
Cool,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
This
exactly.
is the 4 hour work week playbook, right? Geo arbitrage. So you're getting paid in US dollars, but your daily spend and expenditure is in Thai baht.
Yes, exactly. And the rise of remote work has made that so much easier. And now, like I've seen it with Latin America. Latin America has just been overrun by remote workers because you have the same time zone. In Asia, it's different. I had to work weird hours, and it was sometimes difficult to work with teams in the US. With Europe, there's like half the day overlapping, so it's not that big a deal. But with a primarily US team, which I was on, that made it difficult to be in Asia. Depends on what your schedule is like. Like I didn't really mind having late night calls. And then during the day, I had total silence. No one is up, no one's bothering me. So I could do the things that I needed to get done alone during the day. But absolutely that idea of going to a different country, going somewhere where you can earn a higher amount and spend in a lower cost of living place. now I'm in Thailand, not just because it's a low cost of living, but it's just an amazing place to be. I have so much like love for the culture, the food, everything. I would be here no matter how much money I have. I think I just love Thailand. It's developed into that. But it took some time to get there, and remote job was a huge, huge boon on that step. So I would say if you have a remote job and you're listening to this, go try living somewhere. And you don't have to commit to moving. I did it as 90 days. I just said I want to see if I like it for 90 days. If I don't like it, I'll go back or I'll try somewhere new. And I loved it, so I stayed. And I was purposely looking for a base. I didn't want to nomad. I think I guess some people enjoy that and like that lifestyle. For me, I pretty quickly identified I'm going to get very lonely very fast. I'm not going to like constantly moving and not having a base in a place that I'm familiar with and a routine and people that I can rely on and deeper friendships. Coming here is, yeah, it was the best thing I ever did. So
it's a great way to stack too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And actually, if I didn't want to leave the US, now that I look back on it, I would have just moved to a small town because everyone talks about inflation in the US and how crazy the prices are. But I was looking at land and like a half hour from what is the capital of Wyoming, like close to some mountains. It looked decent. It's like a quarter of the price of buying land in Thailand and Chiang Mai. So there's affordable places out there. It's just, yeah, you're not going to live in New York City and save very much money. But if I had a remote job and I got it in New York City, which is what I did, you're getting paid six figures, that you're saving $500 a month max living there. But if you move to, I don't know, Jersey or upstate New York or somewhere to one of these towns that's kind of been hollowed out by the Rust Belt or something, you can have a decent quality of life. You're not going to go out to New York clubs every weekend, but you can have a good quality of life and a nice place and a community and live well while saving quite a bit. I think that's still possible in parts of America, but nowhere near what you can get. Like out here, I don't feel like I gave up anything. Of course, I did give up New York restaurants, New York nightlife, but I didn't really care about any of that stuff to begin with. So I didn't lose anything and I gained everything.
No, exactly. And you've got all that in Bangkok if you
Yeah.
wanted it.
That's true. Yeah. 1 hour flight away and I'm in a mega city again.
Yeah. And the restaurant scene over there and the bar scene, I mean, last time I was there was incredible. So I can only imagine it's got better. So at what point then did you, why motorcycling? Like, so you'd explained to Lauren, you'd never ridden a motorcycle. I generally find people that ride them, they've grown up around them, their fathers had them, and they started riding from a young age. Very rarely do you find people that get into adulthood and oh right, yeah, that's the thing I want to do right now.
Yeah, it was kind of by accident. I mean, I came here and I quickly realized that this is just how you get around. This is the mode of transport in Chiang Mai. There's not really public transit. You have Grab now, which is sort of like Uber. But when I was here in 2016, you could either rent a scooter or take tuk-tuks around, and tuk-tuks were really expensive for me at the time. And they're not, but they were expensive for me as a just graduated college, So I rode a scooter around in 2016, loved it. So when I came back out here, I thought the first thing you got to do is rent a scooter. That's how you're going to get around. So I got a little 125cc automatic Honda Click and started riding that around and just fell in love with it. I mean, the land in northern Thailand is built for motorcycles. It's low mountains that roll on for thousands of miles all the way through southern China, out to the Himalayas and to the coast by Vietnam. And you can ride for months and months and months just in northern Thailand and never cross the same road twice. And it's all beautiful twists and turns, tons of dirt trails too. So I just started riding that scooter and I would go out in the mountains and go to different cafes and cool little spots and discover different villages and get out of my comfort zone and new surroundings. And then I upgraded to a manual bike, started riding that, fell in love with it, just got bigger and bigger bikes. And I don't really know how to describe it other than it's just a thrilling experience. There's a big parallel with Bitcoin, I think, in that motorcycles give you an intense sense of freedom. There's nothing around you. You're sitting on top of a rocket ship, basically, and it's not like a car where you're looking through glass and it's kind of like you're looking at the environment through a screen. You are in the environment while you're on that bike, and that sense of freedom is like nothing else I've ever felt before. But it comes with a really strong sense of responsibility as well. You cannot lose focus or screw up for an instant at the wrong time, because it's going to end really badly for you. And with Bitcoin, it's similar, right? No one can touch my money. I have complete sovereign control over it. I can move it anywhere in the world in the blink of an eye. But I also really need to understand how to use it. And I need to understand what it is, or else I'm going to get rid of it because I'm looking at the fiat price and it's going all over the place. It takes a ton of responsibility to handle the asset well. It's the same with a motorcycle. So there's something about that. I want that freedom, and I'll take the responsibility with it.
So buying the Harley, let's go through that. That must have been a pretty special day.
Yeah, it was one of the scariest days of my life, man. I've never bought anything that expensive before. So
yeah, do you have a pocket full of cash? Like, talk us through it.
yeah, so I made some dumb financial decisions, actually. Speaking of trading and borrowing and lending and everything, I borrowed money from my parents to buy that bike. So I don't know why I didn't think about just financing it and riding it for a couple of months. I think I was worried that I wouldn't find a buyer or get rid of it and be stuck with this bike. So I just thought, I'm gonna buy it in cash. I'm just gonna rock up to a Harley dealership and buy this thing in cash. So I went to a couple of dealers around Tampa because I have a cousin that lives there, looked at a bunch of bikes, and then eventually found a dealership I liked and a bike that I really liked, and negotiated with them on price a little bit. And then that day I signed the papers and I wrote a check for, I think I paid 15 grand via the check and maxed out my credit card for the rest, and drove out with a bike the next day. So it was a very nerve-wracking experience, though, because you have to remember at this point, I had 700 followers on Twitter. I had one call with Corey Clipston where he agreed to help fund this tour and give me a cash advance to do it. And then I would give them content to make a series out of it. And, so I had promised a lot to different people and just bought this big bike. I have no idea really the route. I'd talked to a lot of meetup organizers, but no one knew who I was. I didn't know, where am I going to stay? How am I going to put this thing together? I got to figure it all out on the road. So when I bought that bike, that's, it was real before that. It was real when I talked to Corey and he signed up, and I talked to Unchained and Bitcoin Magazine and stuff, and they agreed to do some things and provide funds and whatever. But when I bought that bike, then it really sunk in that night. Like, okay, I have to do this now. Like, there's no pulling out, there's no going back. Like, I have to figure out how to make the most of this from this point forward every day until this thing is over. And that was like, up until now, probably the most stressful but most rewarding 3 months of my life, or 4 months of my life. It was intense.
But what about riding it? Like, the actual, I mean, because you'd probably never ridden anything that big before in your life. Like, now you're sitting on some raw power and heavy.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. When I first got on it, so the biggest thing I had ridden before that was a 500cc adventure bike in Thailand that weighs about 180 or 200 kilos. This bike weighs 450 kilos, or 900 pounds.
Wow.
So it's like a small car. So getting on that thing, once it was out of a parking lot, it wasn't too bad, and I felt pretty comfortable with it. It didn't take me that long to get used to it, to be honest, to be able to throw it around and feel confident. And when I was riding it, it felt comfortable. Although the traffic is very different in the US versus Thailand. Like, I much prefer Thai traffic. They're looking for bikes all the time, and they're much more fluid. People just flow with the road. It feels much more natural. Whereas in the US, the way I like to describe it is there are rules and people follow them. So when someone doesn't follow the rules, no one knows what to do, and all hell breaks loose. So someone swerves and then everyone's going nuts because everyone's panicking. In Thailand, there are never rules to be followed. Like people are just going where they're going. And so you very quickly get used to that because it flows really well. So it's not a rule book that you can look to, but there's an etiquette and a flow to traffic. So it feels very natural. And coming from a rule base, I saw this with the people that did the rite of passage. Coming from America and riding in Thailand, the first ride or two is very nerve-wracking. And then they start to realize, okay, I can let my guard down. Like as long as I'm looking around and paying attention and not doing anything sudden, I'm in no danger at all, really. So when I got on that bike, yeah, it was a lot heavier, a lot different than anything I'd ever ridden before. The first day I got it, I was riding back to my cousin's house, and some idiot almost swiped me in I was turning left into a parking lot, and they were coming out and taking a left across my path and just looking left, like not looking at other traffic that was coming in. And they had a stop sign, they just went right through it into a left. And I slammed on the horn, and he stopped about 6 inches from my front wheel. And I went right around him. I was like, fuck you, man. I had no idea how to drive the thing yet. So heavy. So he's like in the turn, like, this is it. This is the end of the tour right here. I had 10 minutes of ride, and I'm going to hit this guy, and that's it. Thankfully, it didn't. Yeah.
So what happened to the bike after you did talk us through the tour? You did you're parking it on the roof at Miami, and then you're off. You're good to go, right? You did the whole tour in the US.
Yeah, so I did 3 months on the road, about 12,000 miles and 30 Bitcoin meetups. Met a lot of fantastic people, learned a lot about the country, uh, and ended up in San Francisco where my parents were living at the time. And I left the bike there for a little bit, and then I went on a trip. My girlfriend was supposed to come to the US. She's Thai, and Thais have to apply for a tourist visa to go to the US. It's a very non-trivial process, takes several months. You got to pay a massive amount for a Thai. It was like a fifth of her monthly salary just to apply, and you don't get it back, And most people get denied. So she got denied about 15 days before she was supposed to fly out. So we had to change plans. We ended up going to Turkey and Georgia instead, which was really cool. And then I came back because of that trip. That was about a month. And then I was just going to go back to Thailand, but there was a conference in Nashville called Grassroots, the first year that they did it for Bitcoin meetup organizers. So I went back from Georgia to Nashville, flew there, and went to Grassroots. And that's where I met Alan Jackson, because by pursuing freedom on Twitter, and he's also a big motorcyclist. He runs the Bitcoin meetup in Redding, California, and he's a pilot as well. He flies like small commercial jets, or not commercial jets, small private jets, flies people all over the world on private jets, charter jets. And Alan was asking me about the tour. Alan was probably the most persistent person while I was on the tour, reaching out about come to my meetup, come to my meetup. And it was like 3 hours north of San Francisco. So by the time I got to San Francisco, I was like, I'm done. I can't ride anymore. I've been riding every day for 3 months. So I didn't end up making it up to Reading, but I got to talk to him at that Grassroots meetup. And he just offhand asked me, so what are you going to do with that motorcycle? Because I ride, I would like to have that motorcycle. And I was like, I'm trying to sell it. I want to get rid of it because I'm not going to use it. I live in Thailand. So I ended up selling it to Alan. He came down to Napa and picked it up. Like right after I went back to Thailand, maybe a week or two after, he came and picked it up and bought that bike and still has it. He rents it out actually on RiderShare. If you're ever in Northern California and you want to ride that bike, he still has it. He put different saddlebags on it. The saddlebags, I think, are at the Swan office now. They're floating around, going to different museums and whatnot. But yeah, Alan has the bike. So the
Awesome.
legend. Yeah.
Love it, mate. Okay, so now Shills, Thailand. Well, if anybody's listening and is interested in, I mean, I would say, do you need the plebs to be at a certain level of riding? Like, you don't want any noobs turning up, I'm assuming, to
Yeah, I'm looking for people who can ride a manual motorbike. You
right.
don't have to be an expert. You don't have to ride for 20 years, but you got to be able to ride a manual motorbike to come out here and ride it. Although I have another ride concept that I'm developing that's not solely for Bitcoiners, it's really for entrepreneurs, and we're just going to ride scooters on that one. But for me, riding a real proper motorbike here it's very different than riding a scooter, and it's night and day from taking a van or driving a car. It's really the way that I think people should be exploring Thailand. It's an incredible way to explore this country. But yeah, to get back to the rite of passage, really the idea came out of all of my time spent here and the experiences I discovered that really changed me as a person being in Thailand. I feel like I've grown more the last 4 years than I had the previous 25. It's There's something about this place and getting out of my comfort zone, seeing a different culture and being immersed in a different culture and new surroundings. I knew this growing up just from traveling, but really living somewhere, it's like you're traveling every day. I'm getting tons of new ideas from it. I'm getting rid of my old self, my old habits that I didn't like, and able to really shape who I am going forward and what I want to do. And Thailand gave me a lot of that. There's a lot of happenstance experiences that I've had here that really changed me. So what I tried to do with the first rite of passage was combine all of those experiences and put them into 8 days on a motorcycle. Because motorcycles are a big part of it. Doing Muay Thai was a big part of it, which is Thai boxing, meeting these hill tribes and very sovereign groups of people that are kind of hiding out in the hills here that most people don't know or don't appreciate or see in the right light. Going to all these different places, that the hidden histories and cultural things that took me years to realize and to discover. That's what I want to put into a trip and do it with like-minded people, do it with Bitcoiners. A lot of these things I think are things that Bitcoiners will appreciate, especially more than normal tourists. And I have no interest in making a tour company for regular old people. I want to make tours that change people. And that's what I tried to do and aim it towards Bitcoiners. I know Bitcoiners will get along really well, and I know that they'll like the things that we did. And now I have the proof to show it, because we had last year with 6 people and they all thought it was incredible. And before that, I brought Texas Slim out here and he loved it so much. He was the one who pushed me to do this. He
Right.
came out the worst possible time to come to Chiang Mai. It was so smoky, you could barely see the mountain from 100 meters away. And he shook me and he's like, Sid, you have to take people here. This is incredible. Like, these things that you have discovered, you need to share them. So that's how I created that first rite of passage. And the concept of just trying to change people through adventure and through travel. I just want to do this all over the world in all different formats, just starting here because I know this place and these experiences so well.
Yeah, I remember Slim going out there with his son, right?
Yeah, he had that's also where rite of passage came from, because he kept saying, I want to do a rite of passage with my son and do it on a motorcycle. His son also never rode a manual bike before. I don't think ever rode a powered bike. And he put him on a scooter for like 2 days in Chiang Mai traffic. Just have fun, don't crash. And he did fine on that. So we rented a manual bike, and his first time riding a manual bike, we rode to Shengdao, like 2 hours on a Thai highway. It's no joke. A lot of twisty turns in the mountains and blind curves and fast trucks flying around you. And he made it, and he had a great time. And by the second, third day in Shengdao, he was locking up the rear wheel and sliding the thing, like having an absolute blast. So it was a rite of passage for him. It was a rite of passage for Slam, and it created this whole brand out of that trip.
Mate, that's awesome. All right, I didn't know that that part of the story. Um, okay, so talk us through. I'm sure people are itching to know. Like, I show up, I buy my tickets, I fly in to Bangkok, what's the itinerary? Where do we get the bikes? All of the nitty gritty stuff that people want to know. I'm sure you've answered some very mundane questions in the past, but what, shill it.
This is a good question because on itinerary, for one, I'm not going to tell you. I won't tell anyone what the itinerary is. And that's part of the experience because
Cool.
I think Slim talks a lot about this, and we've had a lot of back and forths and discussion that there's, especially in the West, we are infected with this need to know. We have to know everything before we do it, and we tend to hyper intellectualize everything. And it steals so much of the joy and so much of the discovery. You can put two people in front of the same view, and they're going to have totally different reactions to it. One person that's seen it on Instagram, they're looking forward to going to this place. They're probably going to look at it, and in their mind, they've seen it already. They've already seen it. They've already created an expectation around what it's going to be. And that robs them of the almost childlike joy of experiencing that. So I don't share the itinerary because I don't want to rob you of that if you come on this trip. I want you to go into every day not really knowing what you're going to get out of the other side, because that's what's really going to change you and move you forward and create these moments of joy and discovery and exploration that we don't have anymore in our world because we're just served up modern conveniences, anything you want at any time. So part of this whole experience is trying to dig that out and get rid of that need to know and just help people take these leaps into the unknown, because like I did it with Thailand. I moved out here. I knew nobody. I had no reservation for a hotel for the first night. I figured it all out. Now I have a Thai girlfriend. I have a business in Thailand. And that's how life is done. But when we live in these very protected societies and systems, we forget how to do that. And I think especially for Bitcoiners, it's super relevant because the collapse of fiat institutions is not going to be predictable and comfortable and easy. You are not going to be able to just apply the playbook that you had, that your parents had, your grandparents had, and just work your 9-to-5 job and stack sats and then everything's good. You're going to get absolutely crushed if you think that way. You have to be adaptable. You have to figure these things out. So you got to get rid of that need to know. And that's part of what this whole Rite of Passage brand is about doing. But that said, what I can say about the trip is I've designed it so that everything is taken care of. What I want people to feel like on the trip is that they feel like they're going into this completely unplanned thing and they have no idea how it's going to end up. But I have done all of the research with my OCD to make sure that everything is figured out. So I have contingency plans for everything. I have ABC plans. I've figured out all of the ways that we're going to react if something goes wrong. I know all of that. And I also know that Thailand is an insanely safe place, which is one thing that I can say because I'll say it to you and you'll think, yeah, I get it. It's safe. Like, I don't really have to worry too much. But you don't really understand it until you're here for a few days and you realize how liberating that feeling is. For instance, I've never once locked my helmet, my $400 showy motorcycle helmet on my bike. It's never been stolen. I've never had anything stolen except a pair of flip-flops. And I was in the old city in an area that is 90% foreigners. So I'm pretty sure it was a foreigner who took my flip-flops. There's just something about Thai culture and Thai people. It is so incredibly safe. There's basically zero petty or violent crime here. And it took a few days for the people on the last ride to really feel that. But once they felt it, I noticed a marked shift in their moods and attitudes and just general demeanor. Everyone gets way more relaxed, way more content through that. So yeah, I think if you're worried about safety, a lot of people were worried about safety on the trip or had friends and family that were like, you're going to get shot if you go to Thailand. That's total bullshit. You are way more, 1,000 times more likely to get shot in your local grocery store or on your front yard than in this entire country. I can guarantee that.
Yeah, I can echo the sentiments of everything you just said, right? So just to back it up, and like, you know, that idea of not knowing where you're going to be or what you're going to be doing is so damn liberating, but you just got to give yourself up to it. And when we were traveling around, because after we left Singapore, we started to travel with the kids. So there were 6 of us, you know, the kids were aged 8, 6, and 2 3-year-old twins. And we just threw the bags on and we started traveling long term, and we were home swapping. So we were using our place in Koh Samui in Thailand to swap with people. Uh, we had no idea sometimes. We went in the end for almost 3 years. We went 2.5 years solid living like this, the whole nomad lifestyle. Uh, yeah, man, we would be like a week away. We have no idea if we've got a roof over our heads next week. Like, what are we doing? But it felt so right, you know. It just there was always going to be somebody or something or somehow that you were going to find a place, and everyone was going to be safe, and everyone was going to be warm, and everyone was going to be fed. But yeah, we're so accustomed to like, all right, let's book the 10-day all-inclusive holiday to the same hotel we went to last year because it was so relaxing, and you know, the kids had fun in the kids club, and we could sit and have a beer by the pool at 5 o'clock, and everything's good. Let's just do that again. Yeah, that's a disease.
Yeah,
right there.
it really is. And like what I've tried to do with all these rite of passage experiences is provide you the peace of mind that everything is taken care of, but also that flexibility to exactly what you said, like to feel the freedom of not knowing without the anxiety, as much as I can do to reduce that anxiety. I think it is important to face that anxiety, but this isn't the right way to do it. You know, I don't want people to sign up for that necessarily. I want you to take that on voluntarily in different ways in your own life. But that facing that anxiety is super, super important. So I want you to feel a little bit of that. I don't really know what we're going to do or what I'm going to get out of this, because I think it's a very powerful way to grow as a person.
So when's the next trip? How many, you know, you must have a max amount of spots, and can people pay in Bitcoin? What's the price? How are you working it?
Yeah, so the next trips are in October and November. October is the American Heartland Tour, which basically traces what I did in 2022 in the US Midwest. So it starts and ends in Chicago. It's a big loop, and you'll go to a lot of homesteads, a lot of ranches, maybe some Bitcoin mining centers. You're going to meet a lot of really interesting Bitcoiners, go to Bitcoin meetups. So that trip is more Bitcoin focused really than the Thailand trip on its face, because there's a lot of Bitcoin activity in the Midwest. That was a place on my tour that really I was not excited to go to. I grew up outside Chicago, and I was never very excited about the Midwest. But coming back there, it struck me as there's a lot of hidden energy in the Midwest of people who really want to revitalize places that are past their glory days. You know, you go to a lot of museums in the Midwest and they talk about the 1800s, the early 1900s, the industrial period, and how big of a draw these places were for industry and for tourism. The Midwest was a popping place. And now a lot of people just know it as flyover country, or maybe they go to Chicago, but they don't really travel across the prairie and go to these places. But there's so much hidden history there, so much heritage there, and a lot of energy to revitalize those places. And like we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of really low cost, but high value places hiding out. Columbus, Ohio is a great example. There's a bunch of big tech companies moving in. There's lots of houses, lots of land, lots of bars and restaurants, but no one really thinks, oh, I want to move to Columbus. It's not a hot place to go. So I want to shine a light on some of these communities and places and do it through this rite of passage. So that one's in October, and then the Thailand one is in November, the 4th through the 13th. The Thailand one will be very similar to what we did last year. So I have a very good idea of the itinerary that we're going to do. But it's going to be a lot of adventuring through the hills, maybe some hiking, a lot of riding, some of the best roads in the world here in just an ungodly amount of twists and turns and curves. A lot of great food, really great people. We're going to go to a hill tribe that I like to say the hill tribes are the most sovereign people on earth, because they never really forgot how to live in a completely sovereign way. They grow their own food, they make their own clothes, they can live completely off the grid. Many of these hill tribes, they've integrated into Thai culture in different ways, but their identity is separate. They have different languages, different religions, different farming practices than everyone in the lowland. And if you ask them if they're Thai, they live in Thailand. They live within the borders, but they will not tell you they are Thai. They do not identify as Thai. And they have lived within Thailand or within the kingdom of Siam for hundreds, 500 years, but out of the reach of that culture for so long, they've developed this identity that is essentially anti-state. And there's nothing like that. We like to say as Americans that we're so freedom oriented. We have nothing on these people. These people have never known anything except complete and total freedom within their culture, their 150-person village. It's quite interesting. So we'll get to talk to them and meet them as well. That's a little tease I'll give to the itinerary.
Excellent. And can they speak English, or do you need a translator with you?
Some of them can speak a little bit of English, but we have translators too.
Yeah. I was going to say the chances of them speaking English are going to be very, very low if they're that isolated and self-sovereign. And even the Thai that they're speaking is probably some, tongue of Thai, not the full-on.
That's the thing. It's not even a dialect. It's completely different languages.
Wow.
With no overlap.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. All right, man. And how much is this going to set a discerning pleb back? How much of the stack are they going to have to dip into to come and spend this week with you, either in the US or in Thailand? Obviously, different prices for each. Well, it depends where you're coming from, I suppose. So,
yeah, in SAT terms, the trips are about half what they cost last year.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So they keep getting cheaper every year, but I listed them in dollars just because all my expenses are in dollars. So I got to make sure that I can, pay for people to come on the trip. The America one is sort of family style. Like I want to stay in old homes, stay on farms. So you won't necessarily have your own bedroom, but there aren't places. We will stay at some hotels, but there aren't really good hotels. There's like Hampton Inns and all this. So I want to stay at really authentic places to give you a sense for what you get for your payment. You get some of these really interesting places. You get a lot of really interesting meetups and ranches. I've been doing so much research, talking to so many people, and people are opening up their ranches when they wouldn't normally do tours. It's not commercialized stuff. So you get access to a lot of that, a lot of Bitcoiners, one-on-ones. And that trip is 5,000 USD, I think, for an 8-day trip. And then the Thailand trip is like as high end as it gets, which in Thailand is actually pretty freaking high end. We will stay at some full-on 5-star hotels that are better than what you can get in the US, definitely in terms of service.
Oh my God, so much better.
Yeah, everything is included in the Thailand trip. Your bike, your food, like absolutely everything. And that one is 5,500 for an 8-day trip.
All right.
So remember what it is in sats, but yeah.
Oh, no one can do that math in their head.
Yeah, it's a hard one, man. Yeah.
All right,
so
cool, man.
They're still open right now. I'm taking 10 people for the America trip. Actually, speaking of Alan, I am not leading the American trip. I won't be on it, actually. This is the first one I'm doing where somebody else is going to lead it. But the leader is Alan, who went on the trip in Thailand. He bought the Bitcoin bike from me. He's been riding for 50 years. He's way more qualified to do this than I am. He's also the most friendly person I've ever met. So he's going to lead the American Heartland Tour in October, and then I will lead the November one out here in Thailand. Forget what else I was going to add to that, but oh yeah, there's 10 slots for the American Heartland Tour and 8 for the Thailand one, and 1 is taken of each of them. And I have a few people interested that are like almost ready to sign up for the other ones or for the rest of the slots.
All right, cool, man. Well, I think we've covered everything. We've covered your rabbit hole story. We've covered, living abroad, doing the whole thing, geo arbitrage. We've shielded the trip. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, you know what? There's one thing that's like kind of controversial that I've been thinking about for a while that I want to talk about. Everyone talks about stacking sats and how important it is to invest in Bitcoin and sell your chairs and, do the HODL America thing and have a cheapest possible wedding so you can stack as many sats as you want. The last 3 years or so, as I've been going down this sort of quasi entrepreneurial journey and trying to build something myself, I've really learned that investing in myself has been way more rewarding than investing in Bitcoin. And I think it will return more in terms of material wealth anyway, but I don't think that's the real purpose of it. Investing in myself has made me a more resilient, more content person with more experiences in my life, and no amount of money could have ever bought that anyway. And so one thing that I'm starting to say more and more to people privately is invest in yourself before you invest in Bitcoin. Like there's yourself, there's Bitcoin, and then there's everything else that you can invest in. And investing in yourself means building your network, building your skills, building your strength, your mindset, your resilience. Part of that is working towards making sure your income, your food supply, your lifestyle, your mindset, they're all as sovereign, as peer-to-peer as possible, that you're not reliant on centralized systems for any of this. And there's so many people that have a big stack of sats, but they are so dependent on something else for their self-worth, for their continued income, for their food, whatever it is. And I think, and COVID really showed me this, I don't think if I just have a big stack of sats that I'm going to survive more than 6 months in the real world if shit starts to hit the fan. You need to have sovereignty everywhere else in your life. And that starts, I believe, with investing in yourself, investing in your mindset, your network, your skills, your resilience. And that might mean stacking a little bit less Bitcoin, but the return on that is just so much infinitely greater than investing in anything, let alone investing in Bitcoin. You have to invest in yourself.
Love it, mate. Love it. And so many people are lonely too. You can't sit there and have conversations with your stack. I've seen this, and this is why I'm such a big proponent. And I was so humbled that Matteo thought of me to bring on his journey when starting Orange Pillab, because what I noticed personally was a hell of a lot of loneliness when you're sitting there and you got no one else to talk to about like the things that you're going through, because Bitcoin changes you, as everybody knows. And it wasn't until I started getting out and in front of other Bitcoiners at these conferences that it all started really clicking. But a lot of people stay away from them because they don't want to pay the cost of the airline. They don't want to pay the cost of travel, whether petrol or train, however you get in there. They don't want to pay the cost of the hotel. They don't want to pay the cost of the conference ticket. Sure, some of them may be overpriced. So, you should pick and choose. But getting to a meetup or a local meetup is dead cheap, if not free. You can just it's the cost of your gas to get there and back. But you've just got to find them. And that is a way of investing in yourself, because when you get in front of other people, you are investing in yourself, because you're opening yourself up to a whole new different network. And these are the people that you are able to share your deepest, darkest thoughts and beliefs with within the first minute of even meeting each other. And it's impossible to describe that to somebody until they've actually done it. And we're off to Oslo on Friday to go to the Freedom Forum. I'm really looking forward to that one because first time for us to go. I know there's a bunch of Bitcoiners there, and there's a Bitcoin, themed, financial freedom, and there's going to be talks about that. But then the other 75% of that is going to be incredible people from all over the world that have, escaped dictatorships and whatever else, and exposing us. We're all going as the family. All six of us are going. That is going to be, yeah, it's costly to get there. Luckily, we've got the home swap, but I've rented a car and all of that, and I am kissing goodbye to some sats. But I know the reward that we will all get, all of us, will just move us that next rung up the ladder of understanding ourselves, each other, other people, and money can't buy that. And that will end up as well. If you do this actually as a pleb, I would argue your stack will grow because you will get conviction much quicker. And you will start completely cutting away all of this other fiat bullshit that still rules your life. And you might even leave your job. And that, as scary as that sounds, like, no, I've got to hang on to my fiat job because that's the way I stack sats. It's like, yeah, but you're still feeding that beast.
Yep.
You'll never be free.
You have to let go to move forward, I learned that lesson in a very strange way, actually. I used to watch that Gordon Ramsay Kitchen Nightmare show where he goes and like rebuilds restaurants. And there's a very constant formula to every one of the episodes. And I always notice he would come in, he'd look at how the business works, and then he'd suggest you need to do A, B, and C. Usually the first thing he would do is they had a massive menu with 500 dishes on it, and he would say, scrap this. What are the 5 or 6 things you can cook well? That's your menu. And every single episode, they always push back, well, I'm going to lose my customers. Like they are ordering the last 5 things on the menu. Like, I'm going to lose all these customers who like this thing, that thing. And that was always the fear, is that, well, I will lose what I already have. But if you want to change your life, if you want to grow, of course you have to lose that. Of course you have to develop. If you're not willing to let go, then you're not going to move forward. And I think you're right. A lot of people they're so attached to what they have, they're holding on to, that they can't let go of that or risk that to try to find something better. But you're never going to get out unless you let go a little bit. And that could be going to the conference, that could be going to a meetup, even a phone call. I mean, do you know who Mark Mariah is in Denver?
No.
He's a mentor of mine. He is a great Bitcoiner, goes to the meetups there. And he's written a couple books about like relationships. And I had a phone call with him. It happened out of nowhere. He asked me about this like Thai inhaler things, those little green things they sell in the 7-Elevens.
Well, what are they for?
They just smell good. They're for like staying awake, for relaxing. I sniff them all the time. It's just kind of the same stuff that's in like Vicks.
Okay.
It's like menthol and camphor and stuff. It's just herbs, dried herbs in a pot. It's not drugs. Everyone's like, "Whoa, you're sniffing drugs." It's not drugs. It's just nice. It's like drinking tea. You wouldn't call that drug usage. Anyway, he asked me about those, and I was like, Mark is exactly the person I want to talk to today. So I called him that night, and he said to me, we've been messaging back and forth, but how much did you get out of that? And I was like, I don't know, not that much. I'm just trying to set up a call with you. But after 5 minutes on the call, I had gotten more value from that conversation with Mark than I had messaging people incessantly on Twitter over the last 3 weeks, asking them for help and about rite of passage things and whatnot. And he said, exactly, you need to have phone calls. You need to talk to people. You need to do what we're doing. And I've been shocked by the amount of people I reach out to in different levels above me who are open to just, yeah, I'll talk to you for 30 minutes on a phone call. If you look up to someone or you're looking for help or something, don't be afraid to reach out. Just people in your network, people that you are friends with or you've crossed paths with, catch up with them, have a phone call with them, learn what they're working on. Like, you'll be shocked how much opportunity that unlocks versus just messaging or dropping in the comments of their tweets. But I know I was very scared to do that for a very long time, and I still am scared to do it sometimes. But I think that holds a lot of people back from what they could be doing and what their potential could be. They're just not connecting the dots and having the right conversations.
100%, mate. I tell my kids all the time the same thing, especially the older two, that are still like, text, 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 text. And I'm like, you've been banging that keyboard for 20 minutes. Who are you talking with? Oh, I'm texting with blah. I'm just pick the fucking phone up, pick it up, call them.
Yep.
What do you like? These are your friends. Like you're just texting back. You've spent 20 minutes texting back and forward. You could have had a 15-minute conversation and got way further down the planning, whatever you're trying to do right now. Like, just please just pick up the phone. But it's so frustrating. Anyway, mate, right. Last question. If you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give it to and why?
Whoa, that's a tough question. Hmm. Who would I give it to? I think I would give it to my dad.
Love it.
I've been working on him for so long, and I would love for that to finally click for him. And I can start to see that something has changed in the last 2 years. I think it started with inflation in 2022, where he started really for the first time that I've ever seen, maybe since there was a bankruptcy in 2001 with the airlines because of 9/11. But other than that period, this is the first time I've really seen him like acting economically insecure. Like he's worried about retirement and how he'll have enough money. And on paper, he has plenty of money. He'll be totally fine. And I would love for it to finally click for him that this is a lot bigger than you haven't picked the right stocks or the greedy corporations. Like there's a much bigger story here that connects all of these dots really, really well. And I think I always think that I'm close, but it never works. So I'd love to see that finally work.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man. I need to get the Once Bitten podcast on the Singapore Airlines in-flight entertainment, and maybe you could throw on a few podcasts at some point.
That would be awesome.
That's actually not a bad idea, is it? I need to phone Singapore Airlines, ask them why they don't have Bitcoin podcasts on there for their passengers.
I wonder if that could work because they do have podcasts on some of those airlines. Yeah,
They do.
They have sucked. So
Yeah.
great to add some better ones.
All right, brother. Well, thanks for coming on. Thank you for everything that you are doing. And I know the plebs are going to reach out, especially those that, have a love of adventure and already riding motorcycles. This sounds like an incredible opportunity and trip, and something that's just going to grow over the next 2 to 5 years. I can imagine you running these things each quarter for sure, and other countries too, when people figure out, why don't I run one of these in my part of the world, and reach out to you for all of the information, how you set it up. And I don't know, maybe there's a franchise opportunity here. Who knows, mate? You've got
Alan I'll plug Alan. So Alan went on this ride and he's now doing his own ride in late November in El Salvador. So he's planning that all himself and running it himself and helping him out a little bit with it when he has questions about how I ran this one. So yeah. The other thing I will say is like, even if you don't ride motorcycles or you don't want to come to Thailand, like if you think I can help you with anything, please reach out to me, because really like I'm starting to realize this year, because to be honest, the tours are not booking as fast as I'd hoped. And so I'm like, okay, is this really what I want to be doing? Like, because it takes a lot. It takes a lot of me and a lot of my soul and my energy to build these things and to market them and put myself out there. Is this really what I want to do? And I think what I really want to do is help people build sovereignty in their lives. And for me, a motorcycle trip is just a really cool way to do that. But if there's other ways I can do that, tours, retreats, communities, masterminds, all these things, I may start to focus more on that. If no one wants to ride motorcycles with me, that's cool. I will find other ways to help you. So if there's any way you think I can help you, or you just want to talk, reach out to me on Twitter or shoot me a DM. I'm not as busy as I seem. I have time for this. I should put it that way. I'm very busy, but I have time for this because this is what I like to do. Have these conversations and help people. So
Love it.
yeah, if you're looking for anything, just
I'm looking forward to the day we get back to Thailand and we can come and hang, and you can show us around a few of the places that you know well. Or you come and find us when we get back to Koh Samui at some stage, and
yeah, let me know, man. I'll be here.
just talk Bitcoin all night long. Love
Yes.
it. Yeah, brother.
Better. All right. Peace.
Bye.